Hello and welcome to our Aboo leadership session. If you don't know me, I'm Lucy McCarraher, the founder of Rethink Press, the Business Book Awards, and the Aboo, A Book of One's Own network. We have with us today the wonderful Teresa Boughey. Teresa's talk today is called Scaling Deep with Impact: How Female Entrepreneurs Can Shape the World and Leave a Legacy, which is a wonderful subject to be talking about today. So, Teresa, welcome. I will just say briefly that you're a renowned leadership and inclusion thought leader with a passion for empowering individuals and organizations to reach their full potential. Teresa, you've established yourself as a thought leader in the fields of culture change, leadership, inclusivity, and sustainability. You run the Jungle HR Group, a fantastic UK-based consultancy, and you are a published author, fantastic book called Closing the Gap: 5 Steps to Creating an Inclusive Culture. And you do many other things as well, including you're on the all-party parliamentary group for diversity.
Women and Enterprise.
Women and Enterprise, that's it. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. So welcome again, Teresa. It's absolutely great to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Lucy. What a fabulous welcome, a very warm welcome. And it's always really quite, I'm going to say, humbling and a bit of that special sprinkle of imposter syndrome when you list all of those things and you're like, blimey, that's little old me. But yes, I'm happy to take responsibility for
Well,
all of
yes,
those.
you absolutely should not be feeling any imposter syndrome at all. So, Teresa, what we're going to talk about today is your impact model. So, do you want to just kind of give us an intro to that and say where it came from, and kind of give us an overview? And then impact stands for inclusion, measurement and marketing, partnering or partnership, accountability, circularity, and trust. That's a huge amount to cover, but brilliant that you've got it into a model. So just tell us where it came from, and how you developed it in the first place.
Sure, thank you. So as you mentioned, I'm really privileged and very proud to be on the to be a business board member for the all-party parliamentary group for women and enterprise, and I chair their ESG success through sustainability. So I'm conscious there's lots of acronyms within there. So of course, all-party parliamentary group is usually kind of condensed down to APPG, and ESG for some individuals will be a well-known acronym, and for others it's kind of, I'm going to say, new. It's not entirely new, but it has definitely gathered pace and momentum in terms of people's awareness. So this is going to be a measurement of business success going forward, and it's focusing really on the environment aspects, the social aspects, and then the governance aspects around running a business. And in truth, many organizations at the moment think that it's only applicable to large businesses. And I think where my attention has been particularly piqued, for want of a better word, is actually it's applicable to all businesses. And hence kind of the work that I am leading on with some fabulous other business women, where we're looking at the ESG work stream, as I say, through that all-party parliamentary group, around success through sustainability. And one of the conversations that we've been having really is that many entrepreneurs, so I kind of include myself in that, are keen to make an impact on in the world. We're clearly very privileged again to sort of have our time on this planet, and I'm passionate that we leave it in, I'm going to say, at least we care for it. I'm not sure we can leave it in a better state than we arrive, but we definitely need to. We have a responsibility to preserve the world that we are privileged to be in. And I think on that basis, what we've established is that many entrepreneurs don't necessarily want to scale their business in terms of building enormous teams, etc., but they might want to scale deep in terms of making a really big impact within the scope of whatever product or service that they happen to be specializing. And it was on the back of that I then thought, okay, well, what does scaling deep really look and feel like? And how can we guide those businesses, both in the corporate space, actually, as well as their supply chain partners, which we are all part of. I'm part. I run as I say, my consultancy. I work with a lot of large businesses, so I form part of their supply chain, and therefore I have a responsibility to meet their sort of sustainability targets and ambitions, etc. And as I say, that's where this sort of interest and passion lies in terms of, you know, what does scaling deep mean? And it looks very, very different for every organization. And then how can we enable organizations to get there, knowing that their starting point is going to be very, very different? And so the impact kind of framework was developed because these will be key components that organizations might want to consider as they are embarking upon their journey.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. So let's start with I then for impact. So I for inclusion,
Yes.
the power of inclusion. So obviously that is what you do. You are all about inclusion and inclusivity. So how does that figure in the first step of this framework?
Yeah, so I think it's a golden thread that will run through society, obviously, as well as an organisation. And I think what we're able to do is to kind of evolve that in the sense of what does that mean in the broadest sense from sustainability perspective. So, you know, if we think about an inclusive workforce, yes, of course, we often go to, I'm going to say diversity, and we will lean into those protected characteristics. So are we representative of the kind of the communities that we serve, for example, our customer base? But actually you can have a diverse workforce, but they don't feel included, and they certainly don't feel like they have that sense of belonging. So this is again continuing to evolve, because of course, you know, the landscape in terms of inclusivity and diversity, quite rightly, is evolving. We've got lots of generational sort of dynamics going on in there, which is really exciting, and organizations need to lean into those. So I think when they're looking at how do we create an inclusive and sustainable organization, then inclusivity does sit at the heart of that, because you can often galvanize people together from their unique backgrounds and their unique differences, and create something that is incredibly rich and powerful when it comes to that shared value and belief around inclusivity.
Oh, that's a fantastic way of describing that, Teresa. That's really powerful, as you say. Okay, so that's the inclusion part of it. So the next one, M, in the impact model, is about measurement and marketing. So how do those two hang together, and what is the importance of measuring in this scenario?
Yeah, so as with anything, you've got to kind of take stock. You know, what have we got, and what does it look and feel like? And then, of course, how do we start to measure our impact? And again, through the work that we're doing within the All Party Parliamentary Group, what we have identified is there are actually lots of frameworks out there, and there are lots of accreditations that are popping up around there. And so I think it is about, I mean, we're doing obviously as a piece of work to explore influencing government around that, because I think there is a concern that having too many, there isn't that sort of standard. We're not measuring apples and apples, we're kind of measuring apples and a fruit salad, because of course there isn't that level of consistency. So I think there are some frameworks that are being developed and that do have, as I say, that level of credibility. So find a framework, she says, having told you that there's, a whole fruit salad out there, that is credible, is right for your organization, and then really start to benchmark yourself against it. What is your data telling you? And again, look beyond just the kind of the hard metrics, look at the soft metrics as well. And then once you've gathered that data, it's about actually what can we do? What does it tell us? And where we're doing particularly well, how can we use that data and that information to, I use the word market, but how can we share that with others so that they understand what we're doing? There is, of course, lots of conversation around greenwashing or even gender washing, where it's very tokenistic. So again, there is a note of caution that, you have to have it all evidenced and back up. So if you are doing great things, fantastic, but make sure you've got, it's underpinned with something really robust. So in that particular context, what we encourage organizations to do is to find a framework that is robust, and that it is I'm going to say universally known, as opposed to an organizations that set up kind of a sustainability measuring tool, because as I say, there are lots out there. And maybe there's one that's aligned with your industry sector. So again, those things will be absolutely clear. So what are your KPIs? And then how do you start to leverage those? And again, when we talk about marketing, it's not just about marketing externally through your brand and your clients, it's marketing that to your people. It's a brilliant, brilliant talent attraction and retention tool when people really know that you are serious about these absolutely integral topics of sustainability and inclusivity. It will be a real great retention aid for you.
Oh, that's wonderful to understand that. So, and that sort of leads directly into the P for partnering, partnership and collaboration. And obviously, one element of that is the collaboration within a workforce. But what else comes under the partnering section?
Yeah, there's this is where it gets quite exciting, actually, and there's lots of routes for partnering. What we're seeing again through the work that I'm doing on this sort of all-party parliamentary group is one of the work streams is access to finance, for example. So we are seeing big financial institutes coming together and kind of breaking down those barriers of what has typically been competition, to work together in a partnership to find quite a rapid solution to various I'm going to say funding streams, for example, or as I say, just this whole kind of collaborative piece. And so what we know is if we do want to move forward at pace, and it sounds a bit dramatic when I kind of say it has to be at pace, we really don't have too long to kind of hold back and go, well, I'll work it out by myself. Actually, we need to go together. And that's where that collaboration piece really comes in. Who can you work collaboratively with? And even competitors are working together, because it's not about less, it's about more. How can we collaborate together on sustainability so it aids us both? How can we collaborate on inclusivity so we're growing a talent pipeline and profession that actually we could all benefit from? So it's those types of things. And even if you're not able to collaborate in that way, you might be able to collaborate from a knowledge sharing perspective. So you're helping people take that knowledge and then converting it into what they need to do. The other thing that we see in this space is around the supply chain. As I mentioned to you before, we are all part of somebody's supply chain, and going forward, under this kind of new umbrella, there will be scope reporting. So scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, that certainly larger organizations will have to report on. So they will have to report on their supply chains commitment to these areas. And so again, what we're looking at is getting those larger companies to think about how can we support our supply chain to move through and to get the relevant, I'm going to say, credentials or information sort of gathering. So I think, as I say, the partnership piece is really, really important and really critical. We can't do this alone. We have to come together. And a great other way to sort of weave into this sort of the partnership and the collaboration piece is through the United Nations Sustainable Global Goals. You know, there are 17 of them. So, and of course, Goal 17 is about partnerships. So, you know, they are absolutely on the money as well, quite rightly, in terms of, you know, we can't do this together. They are all interconnected. So that collaborative sort of lens will be critical going forward.
That's brilliant. That makes it so solid, doesn't it? It's yeah, that's fantastic. So Teresa, we've had inclusion, measurement, and partnering or partnership. Then you move on to A for accountability. So I imagine that partially comes from the measurement. But how else do you think that organisations should hold themselves accountable on this, and indeed individuals?
Yeah, so yeah, it is really key actually, and I think you're right. There's the data piece, which of course we've covered off earlier, but then you're right. It's the levels of accountability. You know, where does sustainability and inclusivity sit within your organisation? So if you're running it yourself or you're part of a larger organisation, you know, who has the responsibility for it? And of course, you know, the reality is we've all got a responsibility for it. And even, I'm going to say, sort of at an operational level within an organization, you're right, you have to kind of hold others to account. Are they doing what they said they were going to do? Are they following through on their promises? So again, I think within this kind of area, we will enable organizations and individuals to think about, you know, who are their stakeholders, both internally and externally. How can you leverage those, and then equally how can you hold those individuals to account? So shareholders, for example, are really starting to hold organizations to account in terms of their voting rights. So, you know, if they don't think that organizations are following through with their commitments, then they will hold them to account. Investors are doing exactly the same. You know, if they don't think that organizations have that strong commitment both to sustainability and to inclusivity, whether it be you know, their sort of gender reporting, for example, you know, they will take some quite strong action against this. So again, that A of that kind of impact framework is really, really critical. Who's accountable, and then what actions are they taking? And then you kind of go back again going, okay, well, you've committed to an action. How is it evidenced, and then how are we holding you to account for that? And those things are really clear. And in the ESG principles, then this is where the governance sits into that framework as well.
That's really brilliant, Teresa. It's just the more you go through this impact framework, the more solid it just feels like. It's such an important and powerful way to embedded, and not, I mean, you know, I think, you know, there's always with HR, perhaps in general, there's some views that look on it as slightly fluffy, a bit soft, but this shows very clearly that this is really important and hard stuff, if you like, has to be and, you know, kind of created in this way, which is, and yeah, brilliant. So We've done inclusion, measurement, partnership, and accountability, and then the C is an interesting one. So you've called that circularity, and you've there's a note that that's about minimizing waste. But what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, so here what we've done is we've kind of taken the 5 R's of, dare I say, sort of the circular economy. So we know that the 5 R's include reuse, reduce, renew, recycle, and redesign. And typically what we would do with that is, we would go, oh, this is all about a product. So how do we make a product? How do we look at the packaging, etc.? I think what we're encouraging organisations to do is to think of it in the context of their own business. And we can even look at this through the lens, dare I say, of people. So when I say how do we reuse them, that sounds a bit kind of awful, doesn't it? But actually, it's about how do we look at our talent planning within an organisation, rather than just thinking, hang on, we've got to go out and get somebody new. How can we enhance their skill set, for example, and really start to maximize the talent that we have within the business? Reduce absolutely would be, how do we reduce our talent leaving us? But it could also be things like, how do we reduce unnecessary meetings? How do we reduce unnecessary travel? So there's lots of practical things that you can apply the sort of circularity framework, and it's not just about products. It is, they do play an important part, but actually how can we look at the lens through a different areas as well? So people, as I say, can definitely be one that we can focus on, and that's what we would do in that in that kind of C for the circularity piece.
That's wonderful. I've never thought about sort of recycling as a thing, as a people thing. It's always, yeah, it's sort of but that's such a great way of looking at it, so that we're not
Yeah,
wasting talent,
absolutely.
and we're bringing out everything in a diverse way, from everybody. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
if we think about kind of the beautiful situation we find ourselves in terms of our generational mix. We have this amazing opportunity to learn from, as I say, those kind of Gen Zs that are coming in, etc. But we've also got, dare I say, some sort of legacy pieces as well. We don't want to lose that kind of memory, and they've absolutely got a legacy to leave. So how can we bridge that gap? And again, from a people perspective, it could be that they implement reverse mentoring, for example. That's a great way to think about how do we use those R's of the circularity, so we're not losing that kind of knowledge within an organization or a product or a service or an industry sector. So yeah, it's just about broadening it, because at the moment when we think about recycling, we literally go to cups and paper and straws and or plastics, and I'm all for all of those things, but it's actually, what does this mean for me within my business if I'm doing a business that is running not a product business, but it's a people business.
Fantastic. Yes, that is so clear and so important. Absolutely. And then so finally we come to T for trust, which is kind of the big one, and everything goes into that, doesn't it? I mean, without trust, none of it works. And the circularity is that, I mean, that is very important, that your workforce trusts you not to chew them up and spit them out, I guess. So
Yeah.
tell us about the final piece of the impact framework, which is trust.
Yeah, so our thinking there went exactly as you described. Trust sits at the heart of everything, and of course, we use the trust equation as well to help people think about the components of the trust aspect. What we do know, of course, even some of the larger organisations are, they are I use my words slightly carefully, pouting to be committed to sustainability and inclusivity. But for want of a better word, the words and the music don't always go together. And you know, there's research out there, sadly, that their commitments are not going to achieve what they are aspiring to. Now, there is also another argument that says, well, it's better that they've got an aspiration than no aspiration. However, we do have to have that level of trustedness. So are you going to deliver, and is the commitment? But part of that planning, which we've done earlier on, is around saying we're going to build in a mechanism that will enable us to check and validate. Is it the right thing? Is it working? Is it delivering what we say we're going to do? And then the accountability piece. So they do kind of link back in together. And in this space, we also look at sort of leadership, because again, it's what's the leadership's role in all of this? So, you know, are leaders being activists, or are they being a bit passive? You know, I was privileged to be, or I am privileged to be, a founding member of a Chief People Officer forum. And again, what was fascinating, conversations focused there very much around, in the first early days, I guess, of sort of inclusivity and sustainability, you know, there were some pioneers, and now what's happening is there's fast followers. So, you know, we're frantically sort of, I'm going to say, playing catch up, and we are looking to those organisations that have led the way, but we have to do it from a trusted perspective. You know, you just look at the likes of Volkswagen, for example, and their, dare I say, their emissions scandal. You know, that it was absolutely aspirational for them to do it, but there was concerns, and had they have owned up to it, clearly the scandal wouldn't have occurred. So you can see why trust and leadership is absolutely crucial for organizations as they move through this journey together.
Brilliant. Yes, that just sums it up perfectly, really. Yeah, what a good example too. So, Teresa, how can organisations find you? How can they work with you to on this impact framework, or whatever else you offer, which I know is a lot? So, do tell us what's now out there that you're providing.
Sure. Okay. So we have got our Impact 17 Accelerator program, and the next program will be January. So we do have what we call an advantage opportunity at the moment for people to get on board and to sort of join that program. And what we will do is we will guide them through each of the stages of the impact framework. And I'm really clear to say it's a framework, because of course every organisation has a completely different starting point. Some may have gone, blimey, this is completely new to me, and others may be saying, actually, we're doing quite a lot already, but I'd just like to validate, is it the right thing? Is it connected? Because again, a lot of organisations I've spoken to, they have a sustainability strategy, they have a business strategy, and they have an inclusivity strategy, but they all sit independently. So again, this is an opportunity for organisations to think, hang on, if we bring them all together, what are we going to gain? So yeah, so we have our Impact 17 Accelerator program that we're starting in January. Do connect with me on LinkedIn, because there is always more that we are pushing out, whether it be we've got our A to Z of inclusivity and sustainability that we're posting out there, again, just to spark some thoughts around that area, because it is so broad. And I think that's the thing I'm passionate about, that we broaden the word sustainability in its biggest sense. As I say, it's not just about recycling paper and cups and all of those things. It's about actually, you know, how can we ensure that we've got something for the future. So those are just a couple of ways that you can connect with me on LinkedIn. But yeah, do take a look at our accelerator program.
So just give us the website where people can find you, Teresa.
Sure. So they can find me on www.inclusion247.com. So that's where you can find me.
Great. What a brilliant name for a website. That's excellent. Lovely. Oh, well, Teresa, thank you so much for that. This has been a really interesting and a really powerful talk, and the impact framework, I think, really provides something very, very solid for inclusivity, for diversity. And I, really can't congratulate you enough on having come up with something that works so well, and I think is going to have a massive effect on organisations who use it. So, Teresa Boughey, thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.